Well, this picture hangs in Reverend Sally's office. I call this fellow Sally's goat. Because Sally is always the one who reminds us to honor our emotions in times of change. Well, I'm feeling full of feelings. With the sudden loss of Bob's mother on the day after Thanksgiving, we missed many of our Christmas traditions this year. A decorated tree and a lighted yard. Always going to hear Handel's Messiah with the Colorado Symphony Chorus. Eggnog. We didn't even get eggnog. So when it came time to put away the Christmas decorations last Sunday, I didn't want to do it. I simply wasn't ready. And then on Tuesday, Bob and I observed our 25th wedding anniversary. And the card he gave me said this: "It's easy to fall in love with a cute face, a sweet voice, or a gentle touch. It takes longer to learn how someone shows everyday moments of care and handles tough situations." Very tender. And then on Thursday evening, I announced my retirement, and the earth moved on its axis. And so yesterday, I did what retired people are supposed to do. Bob and I went to the RV show downtown and looked for an RV. Well, I had this odd experience of vertigo with Sally's goat. I was stepping outside of this large trailer, and I looked down and I thought I saw the step. Now, you know, I'm working with my knee here. I thought I saw the step, and I went down, and all of a sudden, I couldn't remember if the step was there. And so I had this sense that there was nothing under me. And it was a long, long way down. And I said, "Oh my goodness, I am Sally's goat." That's exactly where I am, and beloved, that's exactly where we are. And I wonder if that goat's stomach is churning as much as mine is. Not only do I feel like that goat, but I recognize the river at the bottom of those canyon walls. The Snake River in Idaho. Anyone ever rafted the Snake? All right, rafted the Snake. It's called the River of No Return. And when you put your raft into the water, you are committed because there is no place to take out. You must take on the adventure and the risk. And so this goat is jumping the River of No Return. And in riding the rapids, we know that we have a set of oars that we can depend on. We have a set of oars that are tried and true. And we know how to navigate these waters. We've done this before. There is a way to get from one place to the other, from one side of the cliff to the other. William Bridges, in his book, Managing Transition, says that it isn't change that does us in. It's transition. And they aren't the same thing. Change is situational. Transition is psychological. It is a process that we go through in order to come to terms with a new situation. The first phase is letting go of the former ways and helping each other deal with loss. It's all about grief and all that goes into grief. The second phase is an in-between time when the old is gone, but the new is not yet fully formed. Bridges calls this time the neutral zone, shaping new ways and new patterns of relating. It is the gap. It is the hanging in midair. And it is the piece that we resist the most because it's uncomfortable. It's limbo. And then the third phase is coming out of the transition and making a new beginning. So transition itself starts with an ending, or the announcement of an ending, and finishes with a beginning. And the sad news is that the neutral zone can take anywhere from 12 months to 18 months. Yikes. Because I am slightly older than Bob, I am retiring first, but I was in no real hurry. I kept saying for the last 3 to 5 years that I would retire in 3 to 5 years. And then something shifted last summer. Our clergy team learned. We shared with the bishop and the superintendent and with staff parish the idea of a lead clergy team at St. Luke's. And would the Methodist Church embrace this kind of innovation? Would they allow us, would everyone kind of allow us to do this? We've been flattening our organization for the last decade. Now it's time to flatten the leadership team so that we can be more nimble and flexible and express gifts much more clearly and effectively. And our superintendent went to the bishop. Everybody said, yes, let's do it. Great, wonderful. And I said, okay, we'll aim for 2017. And our superintendent said, I don't know if I can hold the team together till then. We found out that Reverend Ryan was on a short list to start a new congregation. And if there are not 2 strong leaders in the launch of a team ministry, there's no way to move forward. And so the 3 of us consulted, and I'm eligible, and I said, it's time for me, it's time for us to move into this. We've been living it. We've been living it for 2 years already, sharing and sharing point with one another in this team. So now we're going to make it official. And with me stepping aside now, it allows for both Reverend Ryan and Sally to anchor the team with a new colleague coming in. And this was confirmed for me just Friday morning. I was on a conference call, and Jeremy Scott, who's the Director of Congregational Development, was on the phone call with me, and he said, thanks. I said, what's wrong, Jeremy? And he said, I learned that I can't have Reverend Ryan. And I said, well, of course he didn't know anything yet. I said, yeah, I understand he's staying at St. Luke's. He said, he said, yes, I was told today that I couldn't have him. I said, all right. All right, good decision. For the next 6 months, we're going to live into this, and we're going to experiment, and we're going to get the bugs out and polish it a little bit, so that when a new colleague comes in, we're not all doing new jobs. We're going to test this and tweak it and work with staff parish. They will be our accountability. And we're eager for feedback. We're eager for your understanding of what this means as the 3 of us. So I am now the lead minister of community life. And I'd be glad to tell you what that means. And here's the lead minister of spiritual life and the lead minister of worship and missional life. We are having a ball. This is so much fun. Bob and I aren't leaving. He will continue to work for a few years. I'll still be in the neighborhood. We'll still see each other in the grocery stores and in the rec centers, but the covenant that we have with Methodist ministers that I need to absent myself from the community for at least a year. And so to make room for the rooting of this new pastor in our life together. During that time, I've already been contacted by several of the superintendents to do interim ministry, and I've said no because they would require me leaving Bob, and we just got to 25. I'm not going to leave him now. But one of those opportunities might come up in the next year. I do intend to get my music back. Yes, I may be able to next year in 17 play my hammered dulcimer for St. Luke's. We'll see if I can learn the thing. So, as Reverend Ryan likes to say, you're my people. You're my tribe. And will be, always and forevermore. You know, the writer of the Gospel, John, gives Jesus the image of this river to express emotion. And he invites us to the resources that faith brings in turbulent times. Out of the believer's heart flow these streams of living water. Today, when people go to Israel, one of the things that they want to see and experience is the River Jordan. As well they should, for it was crossed by Joshua militarily, and it was sought by Jesus baptismally, and today it constitutes this long, meandering border between the nation of Israel and the nation of Jordan. 6 times I have stood in that water, at least waist deep, immersing adult bodies into that water or sprinkling water on the bowed heads of those as we kind of reenact this spur-of-the-moment baptismal ceremony. But that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the metaphor of river in the Bible. The idea of river means so much more. It means prosperity. Isaiah says, I will expend prosperity to her like a river, and the wealth of the nations like an overflowing stream. But it also has a different side. It can reflect the abandonment or the feeling of abandonment of God when the river dries up and the waters become foul and the banks parched and the fish lifeless. Otherwise, the river is a symbol of justice and good. Amos cries, let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. How fitting that new life and new energy should come via the river, since for many, and culturally, the river has been seen as a symbol of death and dying. We talk about crossing the river. Our songbook, our hymnal, has lots and lots of songs about time like an ever-flowing stream bears all its sons away, and most of its daughters, I expect, as well. This is rich symbolism, and I could talk about the richness of river talk for a long time, but I always come back to Norman Maclean. After all, I am a fly fisherwoman. And his great line from his book, eventually all things merge into one, and a river runs through it. So I take that to mean that the river is the thread that connects life and carries it. It suggests that life's movements are not random, but directional, intentional. And it promises that the life's currents will not undercut, but will lift up. So all this is clear to me several years ago when I read Robert Rain's book and a description of a family canoe outing up in Michigan. He says, it's been a while since I had negotiated a fast-flowing river in a canoe. But for a few minutes, as the current caught us and whipped us around, I found myself shouting at my 12-year-old, Nancy, paddle on the right side. No, that's too much. Stop paddling on the right side. Switch to the left. And then to my poor 6-year-old son, I screamed, no, Bobby, let go of the branch. What are you trying to do, turn us over? I laugh because, as the director of youth ministries in my early career, I taught more than my share of teenagers to canoe. And that's how they all start out. There is no rhyme nor reason to their actions, no matter how much you have done on dry land. They paddle hard on one side, then they switch and they paddle hard on the other side. Their movements are frenzied. They lurch from bank to bank, bouncing off of every rock in sight. They hang themselves up on old stumps and submerged logs, and they find every thicket of bushes along the way. They work their full heads off all the time, shouting to and cursing at one another. You know, but it hardly takes any time at all to teach kids that the river knows where it wants to go, and the river knows how to get there. If they just merely let the canoe take its head and are willing to follow the current of the stream, it just takes a little deft stroke here or maybe one there, and the light touch in order to negotiate the journey. It's called going with the flow. And it is the recognition that the river will operate in our best interest if given half the chance. The river is for you, not against you. There are rocks and branches and brambles. There are depths and rapids. There are moments when you're hung up and moments when you're forced to just dig in hard, but the river will send you clues. And the river will see you through. It has been there before. It has carried the likes of others before it has carried the likes of us. And so Bob continues his reflection. What if we could just believe down deep that the flow of our lives is not so much against us as it is for us? What if we believe that the Spirit of God is in the flux and movement of the journey, is in the rolling of the rapids and the river? What if we trust God in the rapids of change, as well as the tides of tomorrow? From time to time, I run into those people on my journey that are contrary. You don't know any, I know. Who not only haven't been able to go with the flow, they haven't found the flow, but they openly fight the flow. One of them even said, I don't know what it is about me, Janet, but I'm just one of those guys that always has to swim upstream. To which I should have said, well, if you're bucking the crowd or the status quo, more power to you, my friend. But if you're bucking the leading of God, then you're only being stubborn and foolish, and you're going to miss out on what's happening around us. Biblically speaking, the flowing river is synonymous with the Spirit of God. And so God is underneath it all. God is underneath it all. Not music, not mission, not ministers, not ministry, but God. If you get yourself some of that kind of high-grade stripping compound and take a wide blade putty knife and scrape all the veneer off the 32 years of the life of this congregation, what will you get down to? God. You'll find God underneath us all. Our search for God and God's search for us, and those amazing moments of connection that are life-changing and life-sustaining. A woman said to me not about a year ago, "You're a pretty confident young woman." That was not very complimentary. The funny thing is, when she said it a year ago, I was neither. I used to be young, and I used to be confident. But along life's way, I fell off those easy waves I was riding. Things I thought would always work don't. And people I thought would always be there aren't. And there was a day when I was the captain of the currents, but that day has passed. The older I get, the truer that old spiritual becomes. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. And to paraphrase another beloved song, I'm bouncing on the buoyancy of God. The other way to say that is, who floats your boat? Who's under the water? The ultimate question about who's under, I'm trying to talk about the providence of God. That this is not something to be explained as much as something it is to be trusted. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that there is a thread of meaning through all of this, a thread which connects and supports us and which will see us through and beyond. And that thread of meaning is God, not the river. The river is just the symbol, that's all. It's not the river that runs through it, it's God that runs through it. It had better be God because, as the hymnal suggests, the river will turn on you sometimes. And there will be days when the river feels chilly and cold. But I remember a story that a friend told me about a day he called on a man who was dying. "The time has come for me to cross the river Jordan," the elderly man said. And his pastor said, "Are you afraid to cross the Jordan?" "No way am I afraid," came the answer. "Why not?" countered his pastor. To which the man responded, "Because I believe our Father owns the land on both sides of the river." As we move through changes, dear ones, go with the flow. Dig deep into what you're feeling, but keep a light touch. And trust that the God of the rivers is also the God of the shores. Both shores. Amen.